so that money is project for other corrupt practices. This is a timely petition, and I support. Number two, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've listened carefully to the sub judice ruling you've made, and that is the correct position. And we must always stick to it because of the doctrine of separation of powers, and it is very important that courts also extend this to this House, so that when we have matters pending before Parliament, courts restrain themselves from dealing with those matters until Parliament actually finalizes, and then we can proceed. That is the rule, and that is the effect of the doctrine of separation of powers. Thank you.
Member for Chepalungu.
Speaker, I really want to support the petitioner because I don't see any harm by the government giving out the cost of implementation of any project and the time it starts and the time it ends. And I think the failure is on the financial management problems. And that failure is linked to policy, planning, and expenditure budgeting. It's the money that we get from taxes from Kenya. So they should know how their money are being spent prudently by the government. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Sotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to support this petition, and I think it's a timely move that we now have the many or increasing cases of project failures and cost overruns. But, Mr. Speaker, I think the elephant in the room is a planning process in government. I think a lot needs to be done in terms of planning for projects, because you find that most of the public projects overrun costs and they overrun time, and that is a main challenge. But this proposal will also add a lot of value into project management for public sector. I support.
Do I see the Honorable saying that to whom the petition is committed wanting to say something also?
Thank you, Speaker. Yes, I want to say something, and I thank you for that opportunity. Speaker, I don't want to comment on the merits or demerits of this petition because then I'll be the adjudicator, so I don't want to go that direction. But, Honorable Speaker, maybe this is something good now as you give us opportunity to look at standing orders, at least for the next Parliament, Honorable Speaker. And we can benefit out of these discussions. For example, Speaker, having experience for the last 4 years being a chair, Speaker, and handling these issues. Because if you look at it, the issue of putting the price of the project on board, Speaker, is not an issue. It's not a problem. After all, the cost of that project, Honorable Speaker, is in budget, for example. It's already in budget. The money we pass from here, everybody is aware that this project costs this amount of money. So to me, it's not a serious issue. What the issue is, Speaker, sometimes our petitioners have very good contribution, Honorable Speaker, but it doesn't come out from what they seek in petition. And today, I was adjudicating a matter of Honorable Washali on statement which is sought through my committee, and we thought that before we lay on the table of the House, that we call him to listen, the ministry giving out or reading the statement. Honorable Speaker, what happened? In fact, he said he was very unsatisfied. So I assume we were to bring that here, Honorable Speaker, what was going to happen? It was going to be futile. So I'm suggesting, Honorable Speaker, that there might be serious petitions, and I'm seeking your direction and your authority that when a petition of national importance comes before you, Speaker, that before we adjudicate as committees or chairs, that we call that petition, Honorable Speaker, to give more information about that petition so that we can be able to exactly know what does this person really is seeking to be addressed, so that we can address for the purpose of our country, Honorable Speaker. Sometimes.
Okay, the petition is committed to your committee. That was the last comment. So we move to the next order.
Order number 4, papers. Sorry. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, September the 30th, 2021, in the afternoon sitting. Number 1, the annual report for the 2020-2021 financial year from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of Langata constituency and FC Talanta for the year ended 30th of June 2019 and the certificates therein. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairman, Select Committee on Implementation, Honorable Kenta.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 30th, 2021. The report of the Select Committee on Implementation on the consideration of the implementation status of the report of the Departmental Committee on Health regarding the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Further, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 30th, 2021. The report of the Select Committee on Implementation on its consideration of the implementation status of the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on an inquiry into complaints of environmental pollution by London Distillers Kenya Limited. Honorable Speaker, I also beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 30th, 2021. The report of the Select Committee on Implementation on its consideration of the implementation status of the report of the Departmental Committee on Lands regarding land issues in Taita Taveta County. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member of Departmental Committee on Agriculture. Who is the member? Is it the Honorable Brighton Yegon? Very well, very well. Member for Konoin, is that so?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 30th, 2021. Addendum report on the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on its consideration of the proposed amendment to the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bill number 68 of 2019. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The Chairman, Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, Honorable Kosing.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 30th, 2021. Report of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on the ratification of the bilateral air service agreement between the government of the Republic of Kenya and the Republic of the Russian Federation. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, the Chairman, Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee, or the Vice Chair, is that Honorable Kalume?
So I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 30th, 2021. Report of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee on its consideration of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 1 of 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Moitalel Olekente.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopt the report of the Select Committee on Implementation on its consideration of the implementation status of the report of the Departmental Committee on Health regarding the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital project, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 30th September 2021. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will also, Honorable Speaker, beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopt the report of the Select Committee on Implementation on its consideration of the implementation status of the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on an inquiry into complaints of environmental pollution by London Distillers Kenya Limited, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 30th September 2021. Further, Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Select Committee on Implementation on its consideration of the implementation regarding land issues in Taita Taveta County, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 30th September 2021. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Honorable Kosing.
I thank you again, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That the House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on the ratification of the bilateral air service agreement between the government of the Republic of Kenya and the government of the Russian Federation, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, September 30, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8, Subsection 4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012, approves the ratification of the bilateral air service agreement between the government of the Republic of Kenya and the government of the Russian Federation. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
We start by questions by private notice. The Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask question number 4 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain first the status of investigations into the disappearance of Chief Inspector Francis Isaac Oyaro of Force number 7723, a ranger with the Kenya Wildlife Services stationed in Marsabit and a resident of Rarieda constituency, who went missing on the 28th of August 2021, immediately on arrival in Nanyuki at around 1 p.m. from his workstation, where he then took a public service vehicle, 4 NTE Sacco Matatu, registration number KCU 905Q, headed for Nakuru. But on reaching Narumoru, the Matatu was blocked by individuals alleged to be police officers in a black Subaru vehicle, who forcefully bundled him into their car and sped off. Secondly, how many suspects have been apprehended or questioned in connection with the disappearance of Mr. Francis Isaac Oyaro? Thirdly, when Mr. Francis Isaac Oyaro will be presented to his family, considering that his disappearance has caused immense psychological suffering to his friends, family, and the wider Rarieda constituency? Lastly, could the Cabinet Secretary state how many officers serving in other branches of the disciplined forces in the country have disappeared in similar circumstances, and what specific measures the government has put in place to protect Kenyans from the spate of abductions and subsequent disappearances that have become rampant in the country in the recent past? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, but more importantly, where is the chair? The chairman of that committee, and this is a question by private notice, so it requires to be. No, the Honorable Kaunya,
thank you.
You are the agent of necessity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the chair had asked me to step in. He's engaged in another meeting, but will be coming shortly. But
this is a question by private notice, and therefore,
yes,
ordinarily it cannot take more than 7 days. That's what is important to note.
It's noted, Mr. Speaker, will deal with it in 7 days.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The only way to rise on a point of order is to press the intervention button. There's also another question by private notice by the member for Kaloleni, the Honorable Paul Katana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 005 of 2021, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife. Could the Cabinet Secretary state when the family of Mr. Chivatsi, Mary Mwazine, of ID number 11376806, residents of Mweza village in Kaloleni constituency, will be compensated for the death of his daughter, who was killed by an elephant near Ndatani Primary School in Kaloleni sub-county on Thursday, 23rd September 2021, and the incident reported at Mariakani Police Station under OB 25/24/9/2021. Second, what action is the ministry taking to address the perennial human-wildlife conflict in Kaloleni constituency? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The chair, departmental committee, question will be replied to before the departmental committee on environment and natural resources. Is the chairperson here? Or the vice chairperson, Honorable Safia Abdi? Again, this is a question by private notice to be channeled, the response will be channeled through the office of the leader of the majority party. Member, I can see some interventions, but before you go for interventions, the next question is by the member for Lamu West, who has written to request that it be deferred. A request has been acceded to, so the question is deferred. So it's the same with the next question by the member for Matuga, the Honorable Kasim Tandaza, who also wrote to request deferment. That request was also granted. So those two questions will not be asked. But I can see intervention from the member for Samburu North.
Mr. Speaker, I was going to comment on a previous matter, but now it is like exited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Member for Nyando, what's your intervention about? Your name shows here. Unless there's something wrong with your...
Well, I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm perturbed by the question raised by Honorable Otiende Amolo as regards the abduction of Mr. Oyaro. The work of the police is to protect lives and property of people of this great nation. It has taken over 1 month. When the abduction did occur on the 28th of August, today we are getting into October, and there is nothing that has been done so far by police officers, even though the matter was reported. Honorable Speaker, there has been a spate of abductions in this country lately. Just yesterday.
But you see, there's a question. So what is out of the intervention? You know, you cannot debate a question.
Yeah, well, I'm only adding more beef.
Honorable.
It has become so common, Honorable Speaker, that the committee needs to expedite this and also try to talk to the relevant authorities to take their work so seriously, Honorable Speaker. The Oyaro family is suffering.
Yeah, but now, you see, if we begin that trend, we will become like some other places. I can see the chairman has arrived and is being briefed accordingly, and we have agreed that therefore the matter is being attended to. It will be attended to. Member for Mogotio, what is your intervention?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is just like to get guidance from you on how long a question needs to be answered, because I had asked my question some time back. I was invited to the Committee of Energy, but they canceled it and said they were not ready yet to deliver the answer. So I wanted to know from you how long a question needed to be answered by a CS. Thank you.
You wanted to know from me?
The guidance, because I'd been invited to respond to my question in the Committee of Energy, but they again canceled it at the last minute and said the ministry were not ready. And so it's already almost more than a month.
Now, where is the chairman? The chairman is not here. You know, ideally, there should be no delay. There should be no delays. There shouldn't be too much delay, because members' questions should be responded to as quickly as possible. A month is too long for a question to be responded to. So that your concern should be then, where is the chairman of the Committee on Energy? He has since disappeared from the House. I don't see him. Does he have a vice? Who's the vice chair of that committee? Lunga. Now, is it, no, Moshetani is the vice chair of lands, not energy. I know it's land, not the staff who does not know. Who is the vice chair of that committee? Energy. Oh, Gladwell Cheriot. Gladwell. Oh, I see. She doesn't come these days. Anyhow, your concern, Honorable Twetroek, will be communicated through the Office of the Leader Majority. Another intervention, member for Oldama Ravine.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have also raised questions to that same Committee of Energy. And to date, Mr. Speaker, I have no indication when we shall get a response.
Energy?
Yes, to the Energy Committee. And as I say that, Mr. Speaker, you will have noted...
Since we have already noted that the chairman...
Yes, we shall have...
And the vice chairwoman...
We shall have noted, Mr. Speaker,
both are absent.
Mr. Speaker, it's just an observation that since we handed over some committees to the ODM, Mr. Speaker, this House really optimally, Mr. Speaker. One of your public appearances that since the serious members of this House of Jubilee were told they can no longer serve in such committees, Mr. Speaker, it is the reason that this House is like this, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it's just an observation, Mr. Speaker, I'm making. It's not warranting a point of order. It's just an observation. It's just a fact.
Please.
Mr. Speaker.
We only make observations when we are commenting on petitions. Now, this is not the time for observations. Yeah, the leader majority says that that's why you are removed. Anchori Memusi, you have an intervention.
No.
Sorry, we are getting there. We go to the next segment, which is a request for statements. We start with the Honorable Professor Jacqueline Odwor.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 42C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the recognition and protection of family unit by the state. Honorable Speaker, Article 45 of the Constitution provides that the family is the natural and fundamental unit of society and the necessary basis of social order, and shall enjoy the recognition and protection of the state. Honorable Speaker, the family unit in Kenya is under serious threat. This is due to pressures from modernization, high cost of living, breakdown of social fabric, and erosion of cultural values and norms that provided a safety net. Further, unresolved issues, poor communication between parents and children, and parents themselves have led to a high level of insecurity and severe mental health issues. Honorable Speaker, some of the most the family face today include lack of effective discipline, where parents and duty bearers appear helpless to provide effective discipline and often move from two extremes of no discipline or direct abuse. Ineffective communication skills coupled with inadequate intergenerational and gender-responsive communication skills, which have transformed the family into a war zone and a threat to all members instead of the safe space it is supposed to be. Breakdown of marriages, divorce, blended families, and emotional health of children due to inadequate parenting skills and lack of work-school life balance. Honorable Speaker, as a result, the family continues to face several problems due to different personalities clashing and disagreeing over ways of doing things, jealousy or fighting between brothers and sisters, divorce or separation, new step-parents or step-brothers and sisters, and where a parent or relative suffers from mental health problems, disabilities, or illness. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee, Labor, Social Welfare on the following. 1, what steps is the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection taking to protect the family from the challenges and problems stated above? 2, what measures has the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection taken to ensure effective coordination between key stakeholders in the community, namely parents, duty bearers, child carers, government officials, and non-governmental officials to prevent, mitigate, manage, and resolve these challenges and problems? And finally, Honorable Speaker Free, what measures are in place to equip parents, children, and spouses with effective child-friendly, intergenerational, and gender-responsive communication skills? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Chapalung, you are the Vice Chair, isn't it? Just a minute. You don't have a card. You press on intervention button.
It's there.
Now you have it.
Thank you, Speaker. That matter is very weighty, and it's a conceptual issue, but the committee is up to the task. Honorable Speaker, I commit with my team from Labor Committee to give a response in 21 working days.
Now, Honorable Jacqueline Oduo, you've heard that. What's your response? Those working days.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Because the Honorable Member says it is a weighty matter, I hope that within the 21 days we can get substantive response. Maybe the working might not be very critical, but we would really like to get a response. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Elijah Kanchori Memusi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44, subsection 2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research regarding the declaration of some areas as ASAL and hard to staff by the Teachers Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers through an agreement. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Public Service has been tasked with the responsibility of identifying hardship and ASAL areas in the country. Public servants and teachers serving in these areas are paid hardship allowances. Honorable Speaker, recently a collective bargaining agreement between the Teachers Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers designated some parts of the country as hardship areas. According to the CBA, teachers assigned duties within the designated hardship areas are entitled to hardship allowances. The Teachers Service Commission has therefore been paying hardship allowances only to teachers in schools within the classified hardship areas and leaving out those serving in schools within Kajiado Central, despite being an ASAL area, a manner that is not only opaque, but also discriminatory. Honorable Speaker, it is against this backdrop that I seek a statement from the Chairperson Departmental Committee on Education and Research to address the following issues. 1, could the Chairperson explain the rationale behind an agreement between the Teacher Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers classifying some areas as hardship areas and removing others, particularly Kajiado Central, Laikipia North, and parts of Baringo County, which are also ASAL areas? 2, could the chairperson explain the criteria used by the Teacher Service Commission and the Kenya National Union of Teachers to determine hardship areas? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, could the chairperson explain whether public participation was undertaken with relevant stakeholders with regard to the designation? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Where is the chairperson, Honorable Florence Mutua? Where is the vice chair? What do you mean? You see, on our members, I think, and this should be taken seriously. On our members, this should be taken seriously, because whereas on one hand, as chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission, I am working to make sure that all those positions get commensurately addressed. Now, if the chairperson is not there, surely the vice chair, like the member for Chepalungu, the vice chair of Labour, was present. The vice chair of Education should be present, because it's demotivating again, even to me, that I'm pushing on one hand certain things for the vice chairs, and then they are not here, surely. The vice chair is not, is not? No, the vice chair is somebody, the member for Nyeri Town, isn't it? The member for Nyeri Town, I thought I saw, he's not very, I thought I saw some, I thought I saw somebody of his size. But you know, the member for Nyeri Town has a habit of never walking through the middle. So when he walks into the chamber through the rear seat there, you only see the portion of the face. Yes, and since he's the same height as a member for the Dagoretti South, he should walk through the middle so that he can be seen properly. Well, the request, Honorable Memusi, will be channeled through the office of the leader of the majority party. But I think even then, such responses should not take inordinately too long. So maybe in 2 weeks' time, the response should be available. The last request is by the member for Igembe Central, Honorable Iringo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to present this, to ask this, to bring this statement in this House. Request for a statement regarding termination of employment for a former Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS Ranger. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to provisions of the Standing Order 44.2c, I rise to request a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources regarding release of terminal benefits of one, Mr. Amisi Giovanni Nderi of ID number 11892397, a former Kenya Wildlife Service Ranger in November 2009. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Amisi Nderi's employment was terminated on 10th November 2009 after his arrest and arraigned in court, and was finally convicted to serve a death sentence on 2nd August 2012. His employment terminal benefits, as calculated by his employer, the Kenya Wildlife Service, accumulated to Kenya shillings 179,320. In the course of serving his sentence, Mr. Nderi executed a power of attorney dated 16th June 2015, whereby he appointed his wife, Ms. Anuria Abdikara, of ID number 23983258, giving her the legal authority to follow up his benefits. She presented all required documents concerning his benefits to both the Meru National Park Office and the Kenya Wildlife Service headquarters in Langata in Nairobi. Honorable Speaker, it is against this embarking ground that I seek a statement from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on the following. 1. Could the chairperson explain what measures the government has put in place to ensure efficient and proper disbursement of employee terminal benefits of officers in government parastatals and in particular the Kenya Wildlife Service? 2. Could the chairperson explain why KWS delayed in releasing Mr. Nderi's benefits despite receiving all required documents needed to facilitate disbursement of disbursements to his next of kin? Lastly, Mr. Speaker, could the chairperson explain the service could the chairperson explain when the service will disburse the money due to Mr. Nderi to his next of kin, plus all interest accrued since 16th June 2015, when his terminal benefits were calculated? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The chairperson is the Honorable Karek Mbiuki. Javed is not in. The vice chair is the Honorable Sophia Abdi, member for Ijara. I don't need to see anybody in Buibui who resembles her. So the request then is channeled through the office of the leader of the majority party to again, but it is good that that you follow it up with the leader of majority so that an appropriate response be given. Finally, it's another request by the member for Lafi, the Honorable Ibrahim Abdi Mudi. You don't have a count? No, you have.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding kidnapping and disappearance of persons in the country. Honorable Speaker, over the recent past, there have been numerous cases of persons who have either been killed or who have mysteriously disappeared in the hands of suspected security agencies. Kenya's and global human rights organizations have documented numerous cases of individuals who have gone missing while in the hands of security agents, some of whose bodies have later been found having been killed. Or great concern is the fact that the government is either unwilling or unable to address the problem. Honorable Speaker, on 26 August 2021, the Chief of Fino Location, Mr. Mohamed Nur Bule, and one Yero Musa Ahmed, a resident of Shipboard village in Fino Location, Lafe constituency, mysteriously disappeared in the hands of suspected security agencies. The matter was reported at Lafe Police Station, occurrence book number 06/1/921. Honorable Speaker, Kenya is a signatory to the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances, but is yet to ratify it. Enforced disappearance is a crime under international law, and government should therefore take concrete steps towards ratifying the convention to ensure that the cruel human rights violation comes to an end. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. In the statement, the chairperson should address the following. What is the status of investigations into the disappearance of the Chief of Fino Location, Mr. Mohamed Nuno, and Mr. Yero Musa, a resident of Shipboard village in Fino Location, Lafe constituency? When will Kenya ratify the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance? And lastly, what step is the government taking to stop abductions, enforced disappearances, and killings in the country? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Sorry. Which committee? Sorry. Honorable Mwadhi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, as that statement is about disappearance of a chief, and I've had several members who are talking about disappearance and abduction, which I'm encouraging that you bring those questions or requests for statements. But as a matter of fact, we'll try and bring that within 2 weeks. That's a maximum of 2 weeks. We'll be able to respond to it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Mude.
Sorry, Speaker. I have no objection to that, and I think I accept within that 2 weeks we get a reply, inshallah.
Very well. The statement by leader majority.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, the 28th of September 2021, to prioritize business for consideration. Honorable Speaker, as members who appreciate me in the third part of the fifth session of the 12th Parliament, and there's not too much time left for sittings of the House. In this regard, I wish to urge chairs of the various committees to expedite all business before them, to enable the House to undertake all the subsequent legislative processes and conclude all other important business before the end of the year, and indeed the term of this Parliament. In the event that we need to increase the sitting days or times of the House to expedite all pending business, including individual members' bills and committee reports, the House Business Committee is willing to take appropriate measures to ensure any business sponsored by a member or committee does not lapse or fail to see the light of day. Honorable Speaker, following business has been tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, the 5th of October, 2021. At the Committee of the Whole House, will be having a consideration of the President's reservations on the Refugees Bill of 2019 and the Tax Appeals Tribunal Amendment Bill of 2021. And at the second reading, we'll continue with the Landlord and Tenant Bill of 2021 and commence the second reading on the Health Laws Amendment Bill of 2021. Honorable Speaker, we also hope to consider the committee reports on the following matters if they are not resolved by end of today. Ratification of various protocols under the Maritime Labour Convention and the International Labour Organization. Ratification of the agreement amending the air transport agreement between Kenya and the United States of America. Number 3, the ratification of the protocols to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of older persons and the rights of persons with disabilities. And lastly, the session paper number 1 of 2021 on the National Water Policy. Number Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 42A, 5, and 6, I wish to convey that A, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government is scheduled to appear before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on Tuesday, October the 5th, 2021, to answer the following questions. And there's quite a number. Question number 193 for 2021 by the Honorable Alfred Agoy on measures to control heavy vehicular traffic on highways. Question number 204 of 2021 by the Honorable Joshua Kimilu on the landslides occurring in Du sub-county. Question number 224 of 2021 by the Honorable Victor Munyaka on the operationalization of Kalama sub-county administrative unit. Question number 249 of 2021 by the Honorable Paris Tobiko on the rampant theft of livestock in Kajiado East. Question number 227 of 2021 by the Honorable Halima Mucheke on the disappearance of a resident of Kenya by the name Dennis Kinoti. Question number 244 of 2021 by the Honorable William Kamket regarding the removal of police roadblocks along Marigat Chamolingot Road. Then question number 203 of 2021 by the Honorable Oboko Milemba regarding the insecurity in Mhaya. Question number 252 of 2021 by the Honorable Ahmed Bashane, MP, regarding the abduction and subsequent disappearance of Mr. Bashu Yusuf and Salah Muhammad. Question number 274 of 2021 by the Honorable Janet Ongera regarding cases of gender-based violence, rape, and murder in Kisii since 2018. Question number 281 of 2021 by Honorable Joseph Oyula on the construction of Butula sub-county headquarters. Question number 301 of 2021 by the Honorable George Theuri on the destruction of property in Molem Ward, Embakasi constituency. Question number 297 of 2021 by the Honorable Samuel Gashofe on the closure of 4 police posts in Subukia constituency. Question number 109 of 2021 by the Honorable Jeremiah Lomurukai regarding the stocking of food and relief items for emergencies in the country. Question number 299 of 2021 by the Honorable Caleb Kostani regarding the prompt issuance and renewal of passports and national IDs cards to Kenyans abroad. The 15th question is question number 309 of 2021 by Honorable Walter Owino regarding the operationalization of administrative units in Awendo constituency. Question number 318 of 2021 by the Honorable Oboko Milemba on the status of investigation into the recent shooting of 3 students by police in Emuhaya constituency. And question number 332 of 2021 by Honorable Sophia Abdinur regarding the steps being taken by the government to address frequent community conflict in arid and semi-arid regions in the country. Question number 347 by Honorable John Buddy regarding the circumstances that led to the killing of the late Michael Obara Simon at Gateway Beach, Sindo, in Suba South constituency. And lastly, question number 339 of 2021 by the Honorable Alois Lentimanga regarding the status of investigation into the invasions and raids by heavily armed bandits in Samburu North. Number B, the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation is scheduled to appear on the Thursday, the 7th of October, 2021, before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources to answer question number 289 of 2021 by the Honorable Simon Kingara regarding the water supply system in the Greater Githurai, Ruiru, and Juja area. The Cabinet Secretary for Energy is scheduled to appear on Tuesday, the 5th of October, 2021, before the Departmental Committee on Energy to respond to question number 294 of 2021 by the Honorable Moses Lesonet regarding various matters pertaining to electricity in Eldomaravine. And lastly, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry is scheduled to appear before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on Tuesday, the 5th of October 2021, to respond to question number 291 of 2021 by the Honorable Chachunganya MP on the operationalization of the National Climate Change Council. Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will convene on Tuesday, the 5th of October 2021, to schedule the business for the rest of the week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House, and thank you.
Next order.
Order number 8, the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to provide for the establishment of the Coffee Board of Kenya and the Coffee Research Institute, to provide for the role of the national and the county governments, to provide for the regulation, development, and promotion of coffee industry, and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 30 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act and for connected purposes. Order number 10, the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 33 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act to provide a structured mechanism through which Parliament is able to receive reports from public officers on the resolutions passed by Parliament and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Community Health Services Bill, Senate Bill number 34 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to provide a framework for the delivery of community health services, to promote access to primary health care services at the community level, and reduce health disparities between counties, to provide for the training and capacity building of the community health workforce, and for connected purposes. Order number 12, the National Flag, Emblems, and Names Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 36 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the National Flag, Emblems, and Names Act and for connected purposes. Order number 13, the Perpetuities and Accumulations Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2021, second reading.
The Chairman, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, the Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the second reading of the Perpetuities and Accumulations Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2021, which was published on the 12th of May, 2021. Mr. Speaker, in moving, I first wish to thank members who supported the second reading of the Trustees' Perpetual Succession Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2021, which is a critical legislation in ensuring the process of establishment of trusts to manage generation wealth, to make sure it is made less bureaucratic. That bill, Mr. Speaker, together with this bill now, the Perpetuities and Accumulations Amendment Bill, are very critical in the preservation of general wealth. But, Mr. Speaker, before I proceed, in order to carry my colleagues along, I would like to give a brief definition of what trusts are, particularly for the interests of those members who are not their area. Mr. Speaker, individuals may control the distribution of their property during their lives or even after their death through the use of a trust. And trusts come in many types and can either be public or private. And they are also created for different purposes, including financial benefit of the person creating it, or the benefit of surviving spouses or minors, or even for charitable purposes. So, Mr. Speaker, a trust is a property interest held by one person for the benefit of another. And it can also be described, Mr. Speaker, as a company or legal entity that acts as an agent or trustee on behalf of a person or business for the purpose of administration or management and the eventual transfer of assets to a beneficiary. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to trusts, we say that trust, Mr. Speaker, is a perpetuity in an investment that has no end. It is an asset, Mr. Speaker, or a business or a real estate through which in life you can get a stream of cash payments that continues forever. And Mr. Speaker, the concept of perpetuities and accumulations arose in the medieval era when property largely meant the ownership of big parcels of land by a few wealthy estate owners who controlled large tracts or huge territories of land. Of course, then, land was, and still is, and continues to be, a limited resource. It was in the public interest then to limit how long a deceased person could dictate how his property may be utilized by the living. However, in today's society, property has expanded to mean and to include money, intangible assets, choices in action, boards, shares, etc. Therefore, when applied to these new notions of property that are not finite, they are not a finite resource and do not preclude any living being from producing them on their own. Mr. Speaker, the primary goal of this bill is to limit the Perpetuities and Accumulations Act, Chapter 161, in its application to immovable property dispositions and to allow for the accumulation of trust income to benefit multiple generations of beneficiaries, particularly in a family trust. Mr. Speaker, the other objective of the bill is that it targets to construct a legal structure that allows generational wealth to be preserved or conserved, multiplied, or to be invested profitably. The bill, Mr. Speaker, therefore seeks to maintain the Perpetuities and Accumulations Act, Chapter 161, and particularly its original objective in limiting perpetual land ownership. Mr. Speaker, the details of this amendment is that they maintain the Act's original goal of prohibiting perpetual property ownership. The advantage of this amendment will be to allow family trusts to function forever for multiple generations, and therefore creating and preserving generational wealth. This can be achieved by using properly written trusts, which intend to safeguard future generations of a family from spendthrift beneficiaries. I also encourage members of this House to make good trust deeds when they leave, but not to rely on oral wills and oral trusts, because one day when our Maker calls you, you will not have a chance to say how your property may be managed. Mr. Speaker, this bill also encourages Kenyans to seek professional wealth management services. These amendments, Mr. Speaker, will also help reduce intergenerational poverty, reduce the wealth gap between generations. Other benefits arising from this amendment, Mr. Speaker, will be that it allows Kenyans to make more professionally managed investments. It will also help them to increase the tax base resulting from profits accruing from profitably managed perpetuities and accumulations. Mr. Speaker, it is not only the rich families, but also ordinary families, normal families, that you'll be able to give more opportunities for future generations, which could otherwise be limited due to financial constraints. This amendment, Mr. Speaker, intends to improve on the existing estate management legal framework. And our country is now of age and has developed sufficiently to provide a competitive advantage as an investment destination. And this legal framework on perpetuities and accumulation will give us some leverage in attracting investments. Mr. Speaker, going specifically to the clauses that seek to be amended, Mr. Speaker, the bill has 3 clauses and seeks to amend the Perpetuities and Accumulations Act 161 to limit the application of the Act to dispositions relating to the immovable property and to allow for the accumulation of income of a trust so that it can benefit multiple generations of beneficiaries, particularly in a family trust. 2, Mr. Speaker, the Perpetuities and Accumulations Act was enacted in 1984, close to 37 years ago, Mr. Speaker, and in order to consolidate and modify the law in Kenya relating to the avoidance of future interest in property on grounds of remoteness and governing accumulations of income from property. The amendments propose to create an enabling legal framework for the preservation of generational wealth. In considering the bill, The committee observed that the amendments to Section 2 and Section 19 of Cap 161 are mainly to ensure preservation of wealth and provide for the application of perpetuity period, while exempting family trusts from the same. Mr. Speaker, we also explain here what is perpetuity period and what does it mean. Mr. Speaker, perpetuity period is that period which applies to future interests in assets, that is, interests that do not take effect immediately, that are subject to the rule against perpetuities. Mr. Speaker, according to common law period, the perpetuity period is the length of a life of lives in being plus 21 years. A life in being means a life in being at the time of the disposition. The rule against perpetuities exists to prevent property from being tied up indefinitely. So, Mr. Speaker, the bill sets out to limit the application of the Act to dispositions relating to immovable property and to allow for the accumulation of the income of a trust so that it can benefit multiple generations of beneficiaries, particularly in a family trust. The bill also specifies the trusts to which perpetuity period applies, and that family trusts will be accumulated beyond multiple generations within the life being of beneficiaries plus 18 years. In addition, Mr. Speaker, accumulation of income will be allowed and distributed within the perpetuity period provided for in the law and trust deed. Mr. Speaker, we took the bill through public participation, and we are thankful to all those groups who appeared before us. Allow me just to mention a few, including Professor Tom Ojieda and Company Advocates, 2 Legend Management Limited, 3 Ashitiva Advocates LLP, 4 Sisure and Associate Advocates, 5 Kisomo Tua Advocates, 6 Oganya Obo Advocates, 7 Kimakia Magara and Partners, 8 Lobo Office, 9 Kemunto Motori. Allow me to thank each of these stakeholders for their useful contribution. Majority of the stakeholders noted that perpetuities and accumulations in Kenya is guided by pre-independence legislation, and therefore it was necessary to amend the legal framework to align it to the present times in order to re-engineer the administration and management of wealth held in trust for generational transfer. And as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, allow me to express my special thanks to the members of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning and staff of our committee for their significant role towards scrutiny of the bill and production of this report. The committee is grateful to the offices of the Speaker and the Clerk of the National Assembly for their logistical and technical support accorded to us during the sittings. Further, Mr. Speaker, I invite our colleagues to participate in this discussion and also to join us at the committee stage to effect the desired changes and amendments indicated by the committee and also proposed by the stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request my colleague, the Honorable David Boni Morika, MP for Kitui Rural, to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Boni Morika, Kitui Central. Kitui Rural, actually.
Yeah, it's Kitui Rural. Thank you.
Kitui Rural.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to second the bill. I want to know the House to note three things. One, this bill was enacted in 1984, and therefore is a very old bill, old law, which may not be in line with the current thinking on creation and preservation of wealth. And therefore, the proposed amendment proposes to create a legal framework for preservation of generational wealth. Two, the amendments will allow family trusts to invest and accumulate wealth to benefit future generations. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the bill proposes to exempt family trust from perpetuity period, which is normally 21 years, therefore allowing for building of generational wealth are reduced in the generational poverty. So this bill is very important. We have seen a situation whereby the head of household accumulates a lot of wealth, but when he passes on, in the future the family starts suffering. So this bill is very important, and I beg members to support it. With those few remarks, I beg to second. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, I will propose a question, which is that the Perpetuities and Accumulations Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2021, be now read a second time. We have two members who have registered interest to speak to this. Honorable Kosing. Honorable Kosing has taken early leave. Honorable Guna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity given to me. Mr. Speaker, allow me to be very brief because this is just an amendment, Mr. Speaker. First of all, let me thank the committee and also the motion mover and seconder for the wonderful job they have done. Mr. Speaker, we have been anticipating this kind of amendments for a long time, and I can declare it is long overdue, Mr. Speaker. So I am supporting this bill on perpetuities and accumulations bill. Mr. Speaker, as you recall, I have gone through the bill very briefly. We have been facing a lot of conflicts in our families. We have been facing a lot of issues regarding passage of properties, or rather inheritance from one family to another, Mr. Speaker. One of the key things I've actually read in this bill, it's the bill will provide a legal and secure way actually to manage the wealth to the generations, Mr. Speaker. Every time we have been facing conflicts on who to inherit what and who is to do it, Mr. Speaker. The other key function actually and the role we can see here is it is going to play a big role in reducing significantly registration of family trust, which actually I'm one of the people who have been actually discussing about it. It will take 5 to 10 years even to register family trust. So this bill is going to reduce that significantly in passage of generational wealth. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support this bill and I urge all my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Ongera Janet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity so that I may also contribute to this very important motion on perpetuities and accumulations amendment bill 2021. Mr. Speaker, let me say that from the onset, I support the amendment. And just as my colleagues have said, let me congratulate the Committee of Finance, the mover and the seconder, and also the proposer of the amendment. Mr. Speaker, it's very important that we get clarity in how we do dispositions of particularly immovable properties in this country. Just like my other colleagues have said, the honorable members, Mr. Speaker, it is important that families have clarity on how they dispose of their wealth, and they ensure that there is perpetuity and a certainty as to how that property will be managed in future. I'm happy to note that, Mr. Speaker, in this amendment, that this particular amendment will provide for accumulation of the income of the trust, and also it will benefit multiple generations of beneficiaries, particularly in a family trust. Mr. Speaker, this has been a gap in the law that we have not had for, there has been a gap all along, Mr. Speaker, and therefore the amendment will cure this particular gap. Mr. Speaker, I also note that this is not a money bill, therefore it's a very straightforward thing that will not have to, no, Mr. Speaker, I didn't, may I say what I actually wanted to say? I note that, Mr. Speaker, that this bill will not have to go, it has nothing to do with the county governments, therefore it's a straightforward bill that will only be in this house, so that it doesn't have to go to the lower house, which will take very long a period for it to be passed. Mr. Speaker, with that, I want to support that there is a clear enabling legal environment for this bill, as the proposal is, and I want to support it very strongly and to urge all members to pass it in the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak.
Well, having no other interest, Honorable Shadrach, you want to speak to this? You know, you have the chance. You have the chance now.
Honorable Speaker, this is really a step in the right direction in terms of dealing with the family property. Honorable Speaker, this amendment is a timely amendment as it seeks to construct a legal framework within which, or that allows generational wealth to be preserved. Honorable Speaker, if you see what is happening actually when owners of properties pass on, or when they die, we normally have a lot of problems as to what happens to the properties that they own, that there are future interests in these particular properties. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, this amendment is extremely critical as it ensures preservation of wealth and also provides for the application of the perpetuity period while exempting family trusts from the same. Honorable Speaker, I can say without the fear of contradiction that this amendment in fact would secure the interest of beneficiaries who in many occasions or in many times are derailed or are confused, moving from one court to another. But with this amendment and with a clear delineation of what is contained in it, would give families an humble opportunity to deal with such properties. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
Okay, now, Honorable Kosing, are you registered for this or the next business? The next business. Now, shall we have the mover replying?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to thank members who have contributed and given us very important suggestions on the improvement of this bill, and we want to assure them that we will take the proposed amendments and views into consideration. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Well, thank you. You are replying.
I beg to reply.
Yes, we shall be putting the question on that order 13 to a subsequent time. Next order.
Order number 14, motion, ratification of various protocols under the Maritime Labour Convention and the International Labour Organization and the amendments therein.
Honorable Kosing, Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this great opportunity to move this motion, very important motion, Honorable Speaker. And as I do move, this is the conventions within the Maritime. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, so that we can follow together, this is within, of course, you know what we were doing, Honorable Speaker, which is the blue economy. We're trying to promote blue economy, Honorable Speaker.
No, Honorable Kosing, reorder you yourself. First move.
Yes.
Then I'm sure you'll put those details.
Yeah, I beg to move, Honorable Speaker, the motion as it is on the order paper.
No, for record, there is no shortcut on that one. It is long, but there is no shortcut. You have to move as in, yes.
So let me be given Honorable Speaker. I have the digital. Honorable Speaker, thank you. You know, this digital and phones is a problem a little bit. But Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on the ratification of the 2014 and 2018 amendments to the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, the International Labour Organization Convention C-185, amended Convention on Seafarers' Identity Documents 2003, the International Labour Organization Convention C-188, Honorable Speaker, which in brackets, Work in Fishing Convention 2007, the International Convention on the Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Fishing Vessel Personnel 1995, and the Cape Town Agreement of 2012 on Safety of Fishing Vessels, laid, Honorable Speaker, on the table of the House Thursday, September 23rd, 2021, and pursuant to provisions of Section 8, Subsection 4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act, approves the ratification of 1. The amendments to the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, in brackets, Honorable Speaker, 2014 and 2018 amendments, close the brackets. Roman 2, Honorable Speaker, the International Labour Organization Convention C-185, in brackets, amended Convention on Seafarers' Identity Documents 2003, close the brackets. Roman 3, Honorable Speaker, the International Labour Organization Convention C-188, in brackets, Work in Fishing Convention 2007. And Roman 4, Honorable Speaker, the International Convention on the Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Fishing Vessels Personnel 1995, and Roman 5, Honorable Speaker, the Cape Town Agreement of 2012 on Safety of Fish Vessels, Honorable Speaker. In moving that motion, Honorable Speaker, that's why I was saying that, Honorable Speaker, this is contributing towards our wider objective and contribution, Honorable Speaker, to the blue economy, which we have been doing a serious campaign for a while, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, this is a synergy, or these conventions are therefore trying to implement in a smoother way our campaigns and our motivating Kenyans, Honorable Speaker, to take advantage of the blue economy. Honorable Speaker, in this, these are 5 conventions. And allow me, Honorable Speaker, then to summarize in every convention what it means, Honorable Speaker. And I will begin with the first one, which is the 2014 and 2018 amendment to the Maritime Labor Convention. What does it mean, Honorable Speaker, in brief? It means, Honorable Speaker, what the convention is seeking is security of seafarers in case of abandonment and contractual claims for compensation in the event of seafarers, Honorable Speaker, let seafarers' death or long-term disability due to the operation, injury, illness, or any hazard. Honorable Speaker, what does this mean? It means that this convention is seeking welfare of what happens outside. There's provision of employees outside the sea. But we have, it's seen, Honorable Speaker, that there are no proper recognition or there are no proper treatment to our employees in the sea, which in this, Honorable Speaker, they are called seafarers. So, like the convention we have at the moment does not provide what happens. For example, if there is an injury of a seafarer in the sea, it's not provided, Honorable Speaker, properly. Or claims or death, what happens? So this first convention, which then my committee, or the ministry through my committee is seeking, Honorable Speaker, is that once we ratify, once we approve this, then what happens? Then there will be a surety, or there will be a procedure on how to compensate our seafarers or our employees on the sea. But on the land, we have those employment and labor relation laws, Honorable Speaker, but this is not applicable in the sea, and that's why this convention, therefore, is trying to cure that vacuum or a gap, Honorable Speaker. That is our first convention that we are seeking this House to agree with us and approve it. Honorable Speaker, convention number 2 in the order paper is Convention on Seafarers' Identity Documents, 2003, as amended, C185. Specifically, Honorable Speaker, this convention prescribes the content, the forms, and systems required of seafarers' identity documents, which we call SID. Thus, the SID serves as alternative to the passport and standard standalone document, Honorable Speaker, when the seafarers are moving. Okay, this is in convention, Honorable Speaker, but in simple understanding, what is this? This is a special identity, right? That likely to replace what you might say an ID or a passport and a visa. Meaning what, Honorable Speaker? Meaning that when our seafarers, of course these are people working in the sea, if the ship docks, for example, in another country, with this document, Honorable Speaker, then that employee can come out of the ship, can be able to go to the sea land, do a sleep there or stay there for 2 or 3 days, then they go back, Honorable Speaker, as they go on with their work, maybe to move with the ship to another country, Honorable Speaker. But without that, Honorable Speaker, what does that mean? It means that you have to apply, you have to seek for, in your passport, you have to seek for a visa to be able to enter to another country. You know that is the normal practice, Honorable Speaker. But this convention is seeking, like almost in a shortcut or a direct way, Honorable Speaker, that if you have the ID, then you are free to go to any other country when the ship docks. The disadvantage we have been suffering, Honorable Speaker, if you look at that and what we are seeking, it's been a long time. Other countries with this identity card, other employees of those countries can enter our country. But our own Kenyans cannot be able to disembark and enter those countries because they don't have the identity card, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, that is what this convention is seeking, this House and Kenya to agree with us, Honorable Speaker. And if we do like that, then our people will be free to be able to move. Honorable Speaker, during public participation, a very fundamental question came that if you are replacing a visa, what about if, for example, other people come, other criminals take that advantage, behave like seafarers and enter into a country? What happens? We called, Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Interior, and they appeared before the committee, and that was cleared. It is not replacing a visa, but it's a good document that facilitates people then to be able to move. But of course, it can be followed. The card itself, Honorable Speaker, is like an ID, but when you are entering into the country, of course, the details are taken. So we got a clearance, and I want to assure the country that is not a shortcut for any criminals entering our country. We assure that one by the National Treasury. But it's very important, national security forces. But it's important, Honorable Speaker, that we give our Kenyans this ID. We agree with this convention, so that our Kenyans can behave like other Kenyans internationally when they're traveling. And I'm sure they're watching us this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, the seafarers in Mombasa and elsewhere. They're very happy that we are discussing about this because it's been a serious thing for them. That is convention number 2 that we are seeking the House to agree with us in approving it, so that then our Kenyans can be able to enjoy, which is what? Convention on Seafarers and Identity Documents 2003, as amended, C-185. Can you imagine, Honorable Speaker, 2003? And yet we have not approved until today. We have a problem as a people. So I think this country will agree with us, or the House will agree with us and approve it. Honorable Speaker, if you allow me to proceed then to the third convention, as it is in the motion, which is Work on Fishing Convention 2007, C-188. What is this convention seeking to do, Honorable Speaker? Now this is shipping. This is a fishing vessel or fishing boat in simple understanding for people then to follow. It is, Honorable Speaker, seeking the following, that it is looking for or to improve or address the issue of safety, health, and medical care for workers on board fishing vessel, ensuring a minimum age for the fishers, that will be addressed. Payment of minimum wages will be addressed, and enforcing limits on working hours, as well as ensuring they have the protection of a written work agreement and the same social security protection as workers on land, Honorable Speaker. It is, of course, many people who will be hearing me this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, or this evening will be saying, you mean there is no minimum wage for those people in the sea? It's not there, Honorable Speaker. And that's why we are seeking, therefore, that should we then adopt this, and then the ministry or the department in charge, and then using this one, will be able now to implement, or, Honorable Speaker, to enforce. Without that, Honorable Speaker, and then, you know what happens then? Then the fishing vessels or the companies that are in fishing industry are exploiting our Kenyans, because then there's no provision of minimum wage. Can you imagine even also time? In terms of how many hours are you going to work in the fishing vessel? It's not provided for, because we have not adopted these international instruments, so that then the ministry can use them to then protect our Kenyans in the sea, Honorable Speaker. Even worse, there's no minimum age requirement. So, and of course, outside the sea, we have it on the land, that you cannot employ this age and so on. But down there in the sea, it is a different ball game. And that's why the ministry, therefore, is seeking and saying, give us these instruments, so that then the government can be able to implement and enforce those protections that I've indicated in brief, Honorable Speaker, in this convention number 3. Honorable Speaker, as I move to convention number 4, which is, Honorable Speaker, the International Convention on Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Fishing Vessels, fishing vessel personnel, 1995. In brackets, Honorable Speaker, 1995, STCWF Convention, close the bracket. What is this convention seeking to do, in brief? Honorable Speaker, it sets the regulatory framework for the training and certification of personnel employed in the fishing vessel, with a view to improving the safety of life and property at the sea in the fishing industry. So, of course, Honorable Speaker, what is it trying to cure? There's no standards in the sea in terms of the people who are going to work in these vessels. So what happens? There might be, of course, that will lead to what I'm saying, exploitation of the employees in the sea. The age, which I've said earlier, the times and so on. But now when it comes to this one, the training. So what are the basic minimums? Where is the training in the first place? We don't have it. And that's why, therefore, Honorable Speaker, the ministry and the Department of Maritime is seeking then these instruments that it's ratified. When it is ratified, then it will now give a proper procedure and how to now read and do the qualification of the people who are going to work in the fishing vessel, Honorable Speaker. This is something very good and simple and direct. Why it has been outside there, maybe that will be addressed on another forum, Honorable Speaker, or another discussion or debate. Honorable Speaker, convention number 5 that we are seeking this evening or this afternoon for the House to agree with us and approve is Cape Town Agreement of 2012 on safety of fishing vessels. So remember, Honorable Speaker, so that I can take you logically, we've been dealing with the staff Now we are dealing with safety of the fishing vessel. And what are we trying to say? Well, what is the convention seeking to do? It is, Honorable Speaker, trying to lay down the standards on the design. So we have dealt with the people. Now what about the ship? So this convention is addressing that by doing what? By giving the standards on the design, construction, and equipment of the seagoing fishing vessel, which, Honorable Speaker, to give you a brief, which are 24 meters or 300 gross tonnage and above. That is the one that can be allowed to go to the sea. Remember, this can also go to the deep end, and therefore you are looking at the size to protect the safety of the staff, which we have given conditions of how the staffing is going to be done. Honorable Speaker, further, this convention, the requirements are aimed at ensuring that vessel safety by flag, of course, by the country, like now our country, flag is a country, port or coastal states. It will further, Honorable Speaker, or it will also contribute to the fight against illegal and reported and unregistered, of course, fishing, Honorable Speaker. What does that mean? It means that this convention, particularly the Cape Town Agreement, will give the specification of a fishing ship or vessel. So that it's easy to then do, as it is saying here, it is easy for the government to recognize and say, look, you know what, this ship is not actually for fishing. And therefore, that might be used for pirate, and they can address that quickly. But without which, you can see different makes of ships or makeups of ships. And that is not how the industry is going to be protected, Honorable Speaker. And that is why then this convention is saying, should we approve? And then the ministry will be able to enforce and say, this is the specification of a ship that is supposed to be doing fishing in our waters, Honorable Speaker. Then, of course, then it is easy. Why? Because you as a country, we as a country, we are very sure the people who are going to board on that ship are safe because we have given our specifications. And of course, you will be able to differentiate the ships which are in the sea. Which ship is for fishing, which one is which one, and the one which is not recognized, maybe that's for pirates, and that can be able to save this country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, having said summary of the five, or given you the explanation of the five conventions which we are seeking the House to agree with the report of the committee, Honorable Speaker, then I would further maybe also give a summary as follows. That, Honorable Speaker, the conventions are in line, of course, because that will be the question. The question the House will be saying, you, the committee, did it follow the right procedures to be in the House? Because you know conventions are supposed to follow certain legal framework, the Constitution and the Treaty Making Ratification Act. So what is the committee saying, Honorable Speaker? I'm telling you this evening, then therefore I want to confirm to the House that the convention are in line with the spirit of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, as they address protection and the well-being of our Kenyans in recognition of the essential values of human dignity, human rights, and equality, Honorable Speaker. Further, the convention also promotes access to quality education, the well-being of maritime labor, and the employees, Honorable Speaker, of the people of Kenya, our own Kenyans who are working in the sea. Second, Honorable Speaker, I'm summarizing by saying that the ratification of the five conventions which I have just gone through will assist the Kenyans in realizing, of course, the benefits of blue economy, as I said in earlier opening remarks. Of course, the Big Four, as well as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Further, Honorable Speaker, the conventions as presented satisfy the requirements of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012 as provided for in Section 7 and Section 8 of the Act. Honorable Speaker, having said that, therefore, it is my duty then to seek this House. It is for this reason, Honorable Speaker, that the committee recommends that the House approves the ratification of the five maritime conventions which I have just said, Honorable Speaker. And with those few remarks, therefore, then, I would request my colleague, Counsel, Honorable Shadrach Mose, Honorable Speaker, to second this motion. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Shadrach Mose.
Honorable Speaker, I stand to second these conventions. And Honorable Speaker, I would first and foremost state that after thoroughly going through the various 5 conventions, the committee dealt with each and every one of those conventions and was satisfied that they were in line with the Constitution of Kenya and the treaty making process under the Ratification Act of 2012. Honorable Speaker, indeed, as a country, I would state without any fear of contradiction that we are or we have lagged behind in actually effecting these conventions, because without them, Honorable Speaker, it means that our business as a country are limited, because the very fundamentals that are required to be able to transact with other countries that have delved into the sea or the maritime line is that we are extremely lagging behind. And that is, Honorable Speaker, why I would state without any fear of contradiction that the Maritime Labor Convention sets out the seafarers' rights. And these are some of the issues that we as a country have not been able to enjoy. And those are things like decent working and living conditions for the world's seafarers. And when there are any challenges that they occur in the sea, issues of compensation have been a problem. But these conventions, Honorable Speaker, once this House approves them, then we would be able to access them. The other line where we have been having challenges that would be addressed by these conventions, Honorable Speaker, is issues like financial security of seafarers in case they have been abandoned. And therefore, their contractual claims for compensation in the event of death and in the event of serious disability are not addressed. But once we approve these conventions, Honorable Speaker, that actually gives our seafarers, people who work in the sea, people who are engaged, an opportunity to access those rights. Honorable Speaker, it also guarantees that the seafarers are, entitled to at least their minimum wage entitlement during their period when they are at the sea. These conventions, Honorable Speaker, also gives guidance on the issue of elimination of shipboard harassment and bullying. As it stands, since we have not signed these conventions, what happens to our seafarers? They are actually not protected, but they are left without proper protection. Honorable Speaker, there is the issue of the seafarer, what we call seafarer identity. And this is critical because, Honorable Speaker, assuming our people are on board, our workers are on board, and the ship has had a problem in a certain state, and they do not have an identity that would allow them to be allowed into that state, then they have serious problems. But with the seafarer identity, they will be able to access that area and be assisted. Honorable Speaker, there are many other things, benefits that would arise as a result of approving these conventions, and I will therefore urge this House to move with speed to be able to expand our brew economy, to approve these conventions and give teeth to our people who are out there. And therefore, this country would benefit immensely in terms of the growth of its economy. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to second.
Honorable Kosing, I thought that was very helpful, just to help members understand these conventions. But anyhow, members will have an opportunity to engage. Honorable members, I will propose a question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on the ratification of the 2014 and 2018 amendments to the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, the International Labour Organization Convention C-185, amended Convention of Seafarers Identity Documents 2003, the International Labour Organization Convention C-188, Work in Fishing Convention 2007, the International Convention on the Standards of Training, Certification and Watchkeeping for Fishing Vessel Personnel 1995, and the Cape Town Agreement of 2012 on Safety of Fishing Vessels, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, September 23rd, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8.4 of the Treaty Making and Ratification Act 2012, approves the ratification of 1, the amendments to the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, into bracket 2014 and 2018 amendments. 2, the International Labour Organization Convention C-185, into bracket amended Convention on Seafarers Identity Documents 2003. 3, the International Labour Organization Convention C-188, into bracket Work in Fishing Convention 2007. 4, the International Convention on the Standards of Training, Certification and Watchkeeping for Fishing Vessels Personnel 1995. And 5, the Cape Town Agreement of 2012 on Safety of Fishing Vessels. Honorable Odhiambo Akoth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I think you've given me because I come from a fishing area. And I do thank the committee for this report. And Mr. Speaker, let me also just start off by praising myself that this report is actually here courtesy of me because I brought the Treaty Making and Ratification Act in 2012. Otherwise, the treaties wouldn't be coming before this House. So I'm actually proud. But based on that, again, Mr. Speaker, I'd want to indicate that I wish the committees would be bringing one treaty at a time, because what the committee has done, I know maybe because we don't have time, they brought 5 treaties that deal with maritime issues at once. The only challenge we have is, even as I've been going through here, is each of them deals with very diverse issues. And we may not have as much time to contribute or as much time to look into them. It's actually like looking at 5 pieces of legislation at once, because a treaty is actually a law. And I want to agree with the chairman that the blue economy is the way to go. And going by the Jubilee agenda, it contributes towards, what do you call it? Food security, sorry, Chair. Chair, I want to, sorry, not Chair, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm also happy that this is coming very close after we recently had the lake tragedy, where we lost 10 people who were just buried a few days ago. Majority turned out to actually come from Honorable Kaluma's constituency, even though they were headed to my constituency. And 3 of them came from my constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'd want to indicate that part of the reason that I was saying that we had a bit more time is when you actually look at, because I've been trying to, as we are going through the other pieces of legislation, I've been looking at the conventions. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes reading one convention is not enough, because you have to make reference. Like when we talk about seafarers, I am concerned, of course I'm happy that when we deal about people who fish in the seas, but I'm also much more concerned about people who fish in the lakes, because a lot of times we forget about them. Issues of their security, issues of their, their rights. And Mr. Speaker, like I come from a constituency that borders both Tanzania and Uganda. So my fishermen are always harassed by both these nations, Mr. Speaker. One, because we are not very clear about the boundaries. So when you are in an island in my constituency called Remba Island, you just go a few meters and you are told, or a few nautical miles, and you are told that you are in Uganda. And the fishermen don't know. They are following the fish. They don't know about lines. So on issues of boundaries. And then what happens is that the security agencies in the other countries are more aggressive than on our side. Very recently, we lost about 3 persons, young men, one of whom we have not found today. The body has not been found. And they were shot dead by the security agencies that were suspected to be from Uganda. And sometimes they are also arrested and taken to Uganda, and where they are forced to raise money, usually per boat, and they are taken to some small islands or stations in Uganda and Tanzania, and they are forced to pay per boat usually upwards of 60,000 shillings. Very recently, I've seen one of my chiefs posting in one of our WhatsApp groups, warning fishermen to be very careful about not crossing boundaries because the fishing season in Tanzania is closed. And sometimes when they don't know, the fishermen don't know that, and many of them are not in WhatsApp groups, so they may not know. And they cross the boundaries, and those people are very lethal. We started an informal process as leaders, between us and Uganda especially, where we had several meetings to foster the kind of things that are being suggested by this convention, so that Kenyans are given some sort of identification, like what the Seafarers Convention is saying, the Seafarers Identification Convention is saying, so that when they go a little further, then they are treated well. They are not mistreated.
The clerk, you should be able to signal members so that then they organize their lots. Honorable Odhiambo, you had 5 minutes, but really, one, you are not warned. Secondly, this subject, really, you understand it more than quite a number of members, and I can tell many members have not registered the interest to speak because this is one would have to know about this area. I will give you 5 more minutes.
Thank you. I really appreciate, Mr. Speaker, because I wasn't actually aware, but I really do appreciate. And Chair, I just want to indicate, let me then go to the ILO Convention C-188, Work in Fish Convention, that talk about fishing boats and vessels, safety, health, and medical care. It talks about the minimum age, wages, and working hours. Mr. Speaker, in the Lake region, this is not regulated. And we have owners of boats, and we have people who are employed there. There's absolutely no regulation in that sector. And because of that, we always get a clash between the boat owners and those who are working, because sometimes those who are working in the boats feel that they are being underpaid. So when they go into the lake and they get the fish, they remove a special part of the fish, of the night perch called mondo, which costs, on one fish, it can cost about 12,000 Kenya shillings. So they throw the fish in the lake and you find the fish floating in the lake. And that is because sometimes they feel they are not remunerated well. So if this were regulated, then we won't have this situation. Mr. Speaker, again, another challenge that we are facing that has to do with this ILO convention is the age at which these young people are also employed in the fishing industry. That we also need to be very clear, because if you look even at the Children's Act, we are not very clear about the age at which somebody can actually get employed. But now in the fishing industry, most of them get employed at way, way much younger, because they see that as a very quick source of earning money. But many of them also face a lot of health issues because the lake is extremely rough and extremely hostile. You can imagine, because most of fishing is done in the night, in the waters, they dock in the morning. It's extremely cold. Sometimes I travel in the lake very late, when maybe I'm in Fangano Island or the other islands, and I'm coming and you see this. There is no light in the lake, so they'll flash the light at you. If it is raining, they'll be rained on because there is no cover. So many of them, to survive, have to take drugs. And Mr. Speaker, those are the issues that in terms of standard setting, we must look at. So what I'm encouraging the committee that as soon as we are done with this, because I know I don't have much time, that we need to not only ratify, because this is a fast process towards ratification, but we then need to domesticate so that we don't have these issues. Mr. Speaker, if I'd go on and on, there are issues of gender dynamics, that women find it very difficult getting into the fishing industry because of something called the Aboya concept, that unless you have a protector, that a lot of times then is a protector of a sexual nature, that you cannot engage. And because of that, it becomes very, very difficult for women to engage, even as basically suppliers or at the raw end of the chain. So, Mr. Speaker, I would want to encourage that we find a way of making sure, after ratifications of these treaties, that then we domesticate them and protect. Mr. Speaker, of course, we also have issues of dwindling stocks of fishing, and they need to then encourage both ex situ and in situ fishing, so that you have cases where when people do fishing on the land, then we don't put as much strain on the lake, and it reduces conflict. Because right now, we also have conflicts between those who are fishing in the lake and those who are doing, using the natural system, and those who are doing fish caging. Mr. Speaker, I know I had a lot to say, but because of the time, and that's why I was saying actually that we should be bringing one convention at a time, because I've not even spoken to the International Convention on Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping, and the convention, the Cape Town Agreement. But I just want to thank the committee, and please next time bring one by one so that we raise the issues very specifically. I support.
Honorable Maje, member for Kajiado North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute to this motion, and say I support this ratification of various protocols under the Maritime Labour Convention and the International Labour Organization and the amendments thereof. And also join my colleague to say these are many conventions put together, but I'll try as much as possible to be general in all. But before I contribute to them, I want to emphasize the importance of Brew economy at the moment. It is a very huge economy that can revolutionize and create a lot of jobs in the country. If you go internationally and see how many economies use water to generate income for their countries, you will be shocked. For example, if you check the coastal counties, the 6 coastal counties can really benefit a lot from the Indian Ocean by maybe creating a good maritime economy, maybe for example, coming up with good boats that will be streaming and holding tourism in the sea. If you go internationally and you want maybe to have a dinner in the sea, you will join a boat and go and you can cough a lot of money. So it's something that have not been tapped, and also fishing that can be done. Therefore, it comes in time to make sure that at least we have protocols that will, and conventions that the country should sign so that it can be accepted internationally. Because if you want to do business internationally, there are those conventions that you have to agree on to have now the standards that are required internationally. For example, if we sign these protocols, we are likely also to get global funding, like maybe you, NDP, will start funding. And I think there is a process in the country at the moment. There is a secretariat in Brew economy that is soliciting funding around this area. So through this convention, some of them will make sure that at least the seafarers are well catered for. The labor market in that area will be well regulated through these protocols. And also the rights of these seafarers. Sometimes you will find that due to the working environment, if they are fishing, their boats can stray to other areas and they find themselves in a different jurisdiction where they should be covered internationally. And also the security in the sea. For example, you remember Indian Ocean when we had these Al-Shabaab and those people who are stopping the ships midway. This kind of convention will assist us now to seek international intervention. And also it is given a kind of a standards in training, accident, and also safety during these in these areas. So I think with those few remarks, I want to say and support this initiative by the committee. I support.
Honorable Ongera Janet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute to this bill. Mr. Speaker, let me from the onset thank the committee for bringing these conventions so that we can ratify them. Mr. Speaker, however, I have some issues about the manner in which these conventions have been brought into the House, and I thought, Mr. Speaker, it would be wise that I raise them. One of the concerns I have, Mr. Speaker, there are too many, so we are just passing them without really looking at the substance and detail of them. The second issue I have, Mr. Speaker, about conventions, just like my other speaker, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, brought up, is the issue of domestication of law. Mr. Speaker, we have 1,001 ratified treaties that are in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but they've never been domesticated into law. It seems that we do a lot of heavy international work, yet we are not domesticating these conventions or treaties into law. Particularly, Mr. Speaker, I am a member of the Pan-African Parliament, and quite a number of treaties have been brought by the AU, and they have never been domesticated. It just saddens me, Mr. Speaker, and I think that it would be very good for us as legislators, maybe before we finish our term, to try and see how many of these ratified treaties can we actually domesticate into law. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, with regard to this treaty, there is one I noticed that it talks a lot, particularly about the sea. They forget that they need also to include the lakes. Sometimes they work against the lakes, particularly, let me talk about Lake Victoria, where I also happen to come from the Nyanza region, from the Kisii County. Mr. Speaker, there was one that spoke about the size of the boats. In fact, we found that actually it was affecting the fishermen in the lake because of the size of the boat. Secondly, when they say that let's not have lights in the ocean when the fishermen are fishing in the night. But you know, Mr. Speaker, the omena industry is one of the biggest industries in Kenya, particularly right now, particularly coming from the lake region. And omena is actually fished in the night by lights. And I want to thank Honorable Millie Odhiambo for having brought an amendment so that now fishermen are able to use fish, they can fish by light in the night. So, Mr. Speaker, as I congratulate the committee for bringing these treaties, I feel that they should have come one at a time so that we examine. Secondly, can we look at the question of domestication of our treaties? With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I would like to support and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Nambaya, Kilifi North.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and I would like to support the ratification of the various protocols under the Maritime Labor Conventions, and also thank the committee for actually bringing this to the House. But I also want to share the sentiments of my colleagues that probably should have brought them one after the other instead of all of them at the same time. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, is that the blue economy in this country is one untapped potential. And the coast region would not be what it is right now if if we had put effort into the blue economy, and this country will be the richer. But looking at what this government has been doing and trying to push for the revival or a revolution, the economic revolution through the blue economy, it's on the right path. But the question is, what is the investment? Investment in terms of the laws, in terms of funds, and in terms of personnel, and in terms of infrastructure. Today, if you want to train one child into seafaring or become a seafarer, it is one of the most expensive things. The license for seafaring today is one of the most expensive things, such that the children or the people or the youth at the coast will not even afford it. So we are encouraging them. And the government opened the Bandari College and made it an academy, a seafaring, a maritime academy. But then to take one kid through that process is very expensive. Why? Because the international license for seafarers is a very expensive thing. And therefore, we need to bring down the cost. And I hope that these treaties and conventions that we are ratifying will actually bring down the cost. Again, who are the people who are training the people to give them these licenses? There are one or two people, one or two international organizations. It's been a closed shop. The people who are training, if you go to Mombasa, they'll tell you only two people are able to give those licenses. Now, because of that monopoly, it makes it even more difficult for a child to be admitted there. So what does that mean? Seafaring jobs are not available to the local people. That people from other countries come in and do these things. But we also know that seafarers are one of the well-paying jobs. The other thing is the curricula. The curricula for training, for example, the cooks, the people who work in the boats or in the big boats that go out the ship. The curriculum is not available in this country. People have to be trained elsewhere. To get a young person to go out there to get the training becomes even more expensive. Who are the owners of the vessels? Who are the owners of the vessels? Kenya does not own these vessels. It's other people, foreigners, foreign companies that own these vessels. To get a child to be admitted into that is another Herculean task. But I hope and look forward to the domestication of these protocols, so that young people from the coast and in this country can get an opportunity, one, to reduce the cost of the license, to make training available, and to make this country also have their own vessels that they can use to ensure that seafaring jobs can be available to the people in this country. On the matter of the blue economy, the blue economy is a huge, huge thing. Huge. Huge. It can increase the GDP of this country probably threefolds. But then, what is that investment that this country? It has just remained in paper. It has been policy statements. It has been, but there hasn't been a deliberate grand push, and I want to use the word grand push by government to ensure that this economy is exploited and people actually. Today, fishing trawlers from other countries come and fish in this country. We are told they have to leave 70% of the proceeds here, but they still go and process the fish in other places. You go to a place like Lamu, where you have open ocean, where fishing, big-time fishing would be done. But then it is Japanese and other people who come and do the fishing, take the fish elsewhere, and actually do not give us our... So there has to be, and I want to challenge the ministry, and probably this country needs to set up a ministry for blue economy that will have a budget, have personnel, and have resources, so that these treaties and these protocols that have come to this house today would make more sense to this country, would be more profitable, and will actually...
Very well. I'm sure the chair, I could tell the chair is very attentive. Chair, Honorable Kosing, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I was very attentive, it's true. So, and I beg to reply this way, Honorable Speaker. That number one, I thank honorable members for this very positive contribution and support the report of the committee. I really thank them, Honorable Speaker. I also thank my members because we really burnt midnight oil. If you look at this treaty, there are 5. There are so many, Honorable Speaker. We really did a lot of work, and I thank my committee for doing that. The comfort I want to give the House, Honorable Speaker, and the members contributing in their concern that there are too many treaties or conventions, 5, as they said, Honorable Speaker, let me give them a comfort, which is, Honorable Speaker, that this, we looked at it as a committee. if you were to summarize, it's actually one, because they are talking about the personnel and the ship. So it was, even when we were deliberating, Honorable Speaker, it was very difficult to say we deliberate on Convention 1 and leave Convention 3 because each one of them was contributing to the other. If you are doing the protection of the seafarers, how will they exit and go to the other countries? You have to provide that special ID. What kind of ship are they going to go? So we're looking at it, and I want to, without contradicting them, Honorable Speaker, I want to assure them that we also saw that, but we are looking at it as so that it's an ecosystem. Convention 1, Convention 2, 3, and 4, which were presented, is an ecosystem. They work for each other. It is very logical. If I were to bring one Honorable Speaker here, people might not understand where are we going. If you're looking at the Convention 1, what about 5? How will 5 fit into? So I want to assure the House Honorable Speaker that it is actually a logical way of doing things, but I want to agree with them. And finally, Honorable Speaker, I want to announce then to the millions of Kenyans who are looking for these jobs that now, there you are. The protection has been given by the House. So go and apply for these jobs. Blue economy, Honorable Bayer, now this is the beginning of blue economy. How would you enjoy blue economy without the vessels, without the people, without even the training? Now we have provided training, Honorable Bayer. So go and announce to your people, by the way, this weekend you should take that on as an advantage. Of course, now that we are going to elections, so tell them, Honorable Bayer, that we have done through the Speaker, that we have done this. This is a great day for our people, Honorable Speaker, if I were to look at it from that direction. So with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, allow me to say, I beg to reply.
Chair, why are you setting the agenda of Honorable Bayer the weekend? He knows what he has to do. Yes, the agenda is clear. Honorable members, we shall not put the question on that order for now. That will be done in a subsequent time. Next order.
Order number 15, motion, report on a public petition regarding recognition of the Pemba people of Kenya as citizens of the Republic of Kenya.
The Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Honorable Mwadi, is it you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I'm the chair.
Yes, you are the chair indeed, and you have been very patient this afternoon.
I had to be because I'm always patient. Honorable Speaker, allow me to then move the motion that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on its consideration of a public petition regarding recognition of the Pemba people of Kenya as citizens of the Republic of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, August 11, 2021. Honorable Speaker, the public petition number 41 of 2020, dated 19th November 2020, regarding the recognition of the Pemba people of Kenya as citizens of the Republic of Kenya, was submitted to the National Assembly on Thursday, 19th November 2020, by Honorable Owen Bayer, MP, on behalf of the Pemba people of Kenya. The petition was subsequently committed to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security for consideration and report to the House pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 227-1. The petitioners averred that failure by the government of the Republic of Kenya to recognize the Pemba people as citizens continue to cause great anguish and inconvenience to the community, since they were unable to register their children at birth. They miss out on education, health, and other social services, were excluded from employment, were unable to register businesses or to open bank accounts, or even register phone SIM cards, had unrecognized marriages. Some were unable to register clear breach and violation of both the Constitution and statutory. On the petition were the Honorable Owen Bayer, MP, on behalf of the people of Kenya, Mr. Omar Mohamed Salim, Mr. Omar Mohamed, Ms. Rehema Abakar, Mr. Omar Al Omar, Mr. Bakar Hasham, Ms. Habiba Salim, Juma Yusuf, Ms. Samira Omar Hamis from the community. The submissions were key in domination of the committee's recommendation. Honorable Speaker, arising from the submissions by the petitioners and stakeholders, the committee observed the following. A, the Pemba people are one of the indigenous people found in the coast, and a majority of them were born in Kilifi and Kwale and had integrated with other tribes found in the coast. B, that although there exist Pemba people who are inhabitants of a village known as Pemba in Tanzania, the Pemba people in coast are Kenyan citizens by birth. C, the Pemba people lack registration and identification documents, and this has hindered them from accessing essential government services, including education, health, unemployment, and of course, business opportunities. D, that despite several efforts by the Pemba people to have them recognized as Kenyan citizens, with the recent attempt being in 2015, their efforts have been futile, as only the Makonde people have since been recognized as Kenyan citizens and have also been issued with identification documents. E, that Article 12 of the Constitution, which exposes the entitlement of citizens, provides that every Kenyan citizen is entitled to rights, privileges, and benefits of citizens and a Kenyan passport and any document of registration or identification issued by the state to its citizens. And finally, that the Pemba people residing in the coast are Kenyan citizens by virtue of birth and ought to be recognized as Kenyan citizens and be issued with identification document in accordance with Article 12 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, arising from the observations above, therefore, and the key findings, the committee recommends as follows. 1, that the Pemba people from the coast of Kenya be recognized as ethnic group in Kenya. 2, that the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government should initiate the process of recognizing the Pemba people as citizens of the Republic of Kenya. And 3, that upon recognition of the Pemba people as citizens of the Republic of Kenya, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government does ensure that the Pemba people are issued with the relevant identification document in accordance with the Constitution and the relevant statutes. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request that Honorable Kaluma seconds. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Pondo.
Yes, I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security visited the coast with the facilitation of Parliament over the matter of this petition, we underwent the most painful and heart-wrenching hearing. The Pemba community in Kenya, Honorable Speaker, stretches across the coast from Kilifi through to Kwale. And with the facilitation of Parliament, we met the Pemba population both in Kilifi and in Kwale. And Honorable Speaker, the point I wanted to make is that even amongst the oldest of them were Kenyans born in this country whose grandfathers were here. So we are not talking of people seeking to be recognized as citizens by registration, but people who are not only born here, but their fathers, their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers were born here. And Honorable Speaker, we want to note that when you look across the country, we recently recognized the Makonde as a community. The Makonde community were recognized by our government a short while back, came into this country, Honorable Speaker, well after this Cape Pemba population. The Shona, who the President graciously recognized as citizens of this country a short while ago, will be celebrating that recognition within the week. I hear it could be tomorrow. And even though Shona, Honorable Speaker, came to the country well after this group of Kenyans we are talking about, the fact that these people are being denied recognition as citizenship mean, Honorable Speaker, that they are not benefiting from those rights accorded to all citizens by Article 12 of the Constitution. And painfully, Honorable Speaker, it includes the right to economic participation and the rights even to employment. Because being not recognized as citizens, it means for they to work, Honorable Speaker, they have to seek work permit. And if you are to seek work permit, you need to confirm you are from another country. And these are people who have no country to say they are coming from because they were born here with their great-great-grandparents. It's a very difficult situation. These are people, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, who are largely surviving on the grace of accommodation. We were told of tales of where people, fellow citizens, the Pemba of the coast, who have begotten children with fellow Pemba or fellow Kenyan citizens. When their children want to register as citizens, they pretend their wives are married to other Kenyans who are recognized as citizens. Some very painful things. Things which are so indignifying and dehumanizing. You can imagine we are subjecting a Kenyan population who are not just Kenyans, but Kenyans by birth too. So I wanted to say, Honorable Speaker, that there appears to have been a confusion between the Pemba of Kenya and the Pemba of Tanzania, who the chair confirmed are in a village and an island in Tanzania, across Tanzania, they are called Pemba. These are pure Kenyans, but they are of that ethnic origin. Honorable Speaker, the investigations by the committee in treating this petition by Honorable Owen Bayer, as confirmed by our good chair, confirms that these are people who are not to be accorded the recognition as citizens out of grace, but out of right, so that they can get their identification document, they can participate in constituting our governance. We are approaching elections next year. These are people who even their grandfather did not participate in elections. And there are people who are very old. We met quite a large population of them. They opened themselves to clear identification. These are people who are willing even to show you the graves of their parents, their great-grandparents, and all that, Honorable Speaker. I wanted to second this motion and ask the honorable members to support this Kenyan so that they can get the recognition other Kenyans have, and also to ask the government to move in line with the new policy of our current president, this inclusive idea of recognizing everybody, so that these recommendations may not only be adopted but may be put into force by the president before our president, leaves leadership. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I second. Thank you.
Honorable members, I will propose a question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on its consideration of a public petition regarding recognition of the Pemba people of Kenya as citizens of the Republic of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. On top here is Odhiambo Akoth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee should be making them, if this the 46th tribe, I believe, after the Shonas, who are also my people from Zimbabwe. And Mr. Speaker, it's in fact been an injustice that we have people who, to all extents and purposes, have become Kenyanized, that then we make them beg for citizenship, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hope that indeed any other community that may be remaining that we have not recognized would be assimilated and accepted as Kenyans, so that we live together in unity as a people. So that, Mr. Speaker, we don't have a situation where you have, where the Constitution even recognizes people who are born as citizens, yet we do not recognize them by their lineage, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I know this is not really much that I would, there is not much that I would want to say about this, except that I think it's a very noble move. And beyond this, I know the Shona people, for instance, are celebrating tomorrow in Uhuru Park after they were granted the citizenship. But I also pray, Mr. Speaker, for the other categories that are still not recognized, that are in this country for generations, some who are even much older than us and really then would appear to have even more right than some of us. Mr. Speaker, I do support and thank the committee for considering the Pemba people. Thank you.
Honorable Ali Fatuma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I want to thank my chair for moving such a wonderful petition. Equally, I want to thank the Member of Parliament, Honorable Mbaya, for really representing his people well. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, as Vice Chair of the committee, I am really happy to have participated in that meeting. And indeed, it is really sad for community who is very important not to benefit the basic human rights and the needs, such as even the kids going to school. Mothers could not access health facilities because they are not registered. Employment, Mr. Speaker. Even businesses, because I'm sure they're really hardworking community who want to contribute to the economy of this country. But unfortunately, they could not do that because of registration. Even, Mr. Speaker, registration of SIM card, so that they can have communication with their people. It was also a challenge. Unrecognized marriages, Mr. Speaker, is very key, especially for the women, because every woman wants to have a stable marriage, which is recognized in the community. So, Mr. Speaker, we found out these issues were really very sad and disadvantaged the community, the Pemba community. And the recommendation of this committee, I would really like the House to support the recommendation, because even our country, recently, our good government have recognized Shona and also Makonde. And I think this will be the 46th tribe of the Republic of Kenya, which I really want to thank His Excellency the President, because he's one person who really values or cares the rights of each and every citizens of this country. Honorable Owen Bayer, who comes from the ODM party, I think the good people who have elected you in the ODM party, they have something today to celebrate about. Even though you've moved to Uganda Development Agenda, we want to tell you, please come back to the party that believes in social justice, to the party that cares about the ordinary wananchi, to the party that cares and have been fighting for injustice. And that is why this house today have stood with you, Mr. Honorable Owen Baya. And for me, I'm really proud of you, but this is just to encourage you so that you need to know where you belong. But again, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I want to urge the honorable members of this parliament to support the recommendation of the committee, and also let us also identify if there is other communities who have similar problems, because they must be registered so that to benefit from the basic human rights. Thank you. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for according me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to support this report, which Chairman, the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security has presented. Mr. Speaker, having participated in the fact-finding mission over this public petition by Honorable Owen Baya, Mr. Speaker, we listened to people who had been denied the chance in terms of what the law requires for every Kenyan who should have a right to enjoy the economic and political freedoms. Mr. Speaker, when we visited Kwale and Kilifi, we found people as old as 80 years old who were born there and whose fathers and grandfathers were born there, and they never got identity cards. Mr. Speaker, the question of the Pemba people was long overdue and is long overdue. Mr. Speaker, most of the community were not able to register and get IDs, and yet they were born there. And the fact is that when they are not able to get an ID, the testimonies from the community indicated, Mr. Speaker, that most of them, if they wanted to enjoy the rights of other Kenyans, they had to pretend they were other communities. Like in Kwale, there were those who could identify themselves as Digo, and yet they are not Digos. So in the ID, in order to acquire the ID, they had to use that identification. In Kilifi, they could identify themselves as Griama in order to be able to enjoy the rights every other Kenyan enjoys. So, Mr. Speaker, based on the recommendations of the committee, which our chairman has just read, we support this, providing the Pemba people with that recognition, and we really want to urge the Ministry of Interior, the CS, to initiate the process immediately so that the Pemba people can participate, especially in the forthcoming election as Pemba people. We also request that after the recognition process, the ministry should provide the identity cards so that they can vote. They can also participate in the economic life in this country. Mr. Speaker, of course, as mentioned by other members, there are a number of other communities where that identification is required, and it is necessary to ensure that every Kenyan community is recognized and they participate fully in the development of this country. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support and urge also other members of this House to support the rights of these communities that were not recognized. I support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Baya.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I'm a very happy person today, and courtesy of the committee, and I want to thank the chair and the members for a good job well done. And I am happy that they lived through the process. They did not just listen, but they actually lived the lives of the Pemba within that short time that they are with them. And they had trenching stories and the torture that these Kenyans have gone through just because there is another community by the name Pemba in Tanzania. Just because of that. That today the Pemba in Kenya cannot be recognized just because there's a town in Tanzania called Pemba. And therefore the Pemba is here in Kenya. This country has communities that live across. The Maasai are in Kenya, are in Tanzania. But the Maasai in Kenya are recognized. This country has the people called the Chaga in Taveta. There are Chaga in Tanzania, the Chaga in Kenya. But the Chaga in Kenya are recognized. But the Pemba are not, just because there's another community across. This is an injustice that has been meted on these people for many years. But I want to thank the committee for these recommendations that they have made, that the Pemba are indeed Kenyans like any other Kenyan. The Pemba are part of the Swahili nation. The Swahili are recognized in this country. The Jomvu are recognized. The Wachangamwe are recognized, you know. All these people, the Pemba are just part of that bigger Swahili nation. But they were singled out because there is another group across in Tanzania called the Pemba. And they have lived here. They have suffered. They cannot participate in any economic activity. Today, my schools in my constituency that host the Pemba children do not get NEMIS money, the money that comes from the NEMIS, because these children cannot be registered. So if they cannot be registered in the NEMIS because they don't have birth certificates and their parents don't have any document, it means, therefore, that there'll be less money in the schools because the Pemba children are in those schools. These children cannot even, right now, because of the requirement of a birth certificate for KCPE, these children cannot do a Standard 8 examination because they do not have a birth certificate. Today, you cannot officiate a marriage. A Pemba getting married who does not have any documentation cannot enter into a legal marriage because it's required that you produce an identity card or an identification. And therefore, the marriages that these Pembas are getting into, you can imagine a woman gets married to a man, but he has no right in that marriage because he has nothing that really identifies her as married to that person. These are the stories. This is the hard way that the Pemba people live in this country. But thank you, the committee, for the good job that you have done. And I want to believe that the Cabinet Secretary will, within the shortest period of time, and I hope that this Mashujaa Day that we're going to celebrate, and I ask you, Chairman, I know you're closer to power there, that a pronouncement be made by the President, this Jamhuri, this Mashujaa Day, that the Pemba are actually Kenyans and that the process of giving them identification documents start so that they can now go into a normal life. A story is not a story, but there's this man who owned a boat. He was a Pemba, but somehow he did his own boat. You know, they're craftsmen. So he did a boat. He tried to sell this boat. He didn't have identification. So he asked someone else to enter into an agreement on behalf of himself and the person buying. And an agreement was drawn. This guy could not receive the money because he doesn't have a bank account. So the money was put in the bank account of someone else. When this person got the money, he disappeared. And this Pemba could not even go to the police station to report this matter because he will be arrested as an alien. That's how sad it gets. And this person lost the boat and he lost the money just because he could not even go to a police. The Pembas in this country cannot seek justice. They cannot go to a police station because they'll be arrested as aliens. They cannot go to court for any injustice. That's the life of the Pemba. But I want to thank the committee for a good job well done. and that the Pemba will get justice. They are Kenyans, and therefore they will get documentation that shows them that this is their birthright. Statelessness, Mr. Speaker, statelessness is the worst infringement on human rights. The Pemba are described as stateless. It is the worst infringement.
Now, Honorable Wire, I think you are one of the originator of the public petition on this one. I will definitely add you 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I want to dwell on this subject called statelessness, because we are looking at people who are stateless. They are not recognized. They cannot go to Tanzania because they're not Tanzanians. They're not recognized in Kenya because they're not Kenyans. That's called statelessness. If you are stateless, if you're stateless, you don't have any rights, and all your human rights are collapsed. You have no right whatsoever. Because one of the things, you don't have a right to an identity. You don't have a right to any country, any nation. And it actually is the worst thing that this country must fight. There are very many communities in this country that are described as stateless. They're stateless not because of their mistake, but because they were born here in this country. Their grandfathers, their great-grandfathers were born here. But because somebody has refused to give a code and give them a code and identify them as Kenyans, governments have not done so, then they become stateless. Mr. Speaker, if we must talk about injustice in this country, the greatest injustice is to be declared stateless. The Pembas are described as stateless. Statelessness, Mr. Speaker, I don't know what we will do, but there are many Kenyans that are here but are described as stateless, and the Pemba. This is just one of the many cases that probably need to pass through this parliament. But I think as a parliament, we need to rise above that and not allow any other person in this country to be called stateless, because it is actually collapsing all the rights, the human rights of an individual. But I want to say thank you very much, Peter and your committee, and Kaluma, you came to Kilifi. I saw you there, Kaunya, you came to Kilifi, and many other members, and you listened to those stories, those sad stories, empathize with these people, and actually you have now recognized that they're Kenyans. And we hope as we move forward, we'll come and celebrate the day when they get their papers that shows them that now, for the first time in their life, they have a state called Kenya, a country they love very much. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Honorable Rosabuyu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I'd first of all like to say that I am a member of the committee that dealt with this issue of the Pemba people. And I truly and honestly want to congratulate that committee because of the effort they made to visit and to have a discussion with the people of Pemba so that they could actually delve and know exactly what these people feel. Mr. Speaker, the report by this committee is the beginning of a glimmer of hope. Hope for a people who have felt indignified, a people who've felt isolated, and a people who felt less than anybody else in this country. Mr. Speaker, when you are stateless, like has been said by the former speaker, you are denied the dignity or the opportunity to participate meaningfully in any aspect of the society. Economically, even when you participate without motivation, because you know that when it comes to enjoying the proceeds of your economic sweat, you will not enjoy it like the rest of the Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, we are currently in the campaign mood and will be going into elections next year, Mr. Speaker. But for the people of Pemba, elections meant nothing to them because they were always denied the opportunity to choose or to show preference or to elect anybody to represent them in any of the segments of our political sphere. Mr. Speaker, there is nothing worse than actually feeling that you are somewhere, you belong somewhere, yet you do not actually belong. Mr. Speaker, I speak with pride today as a Kenyan when I see how the Shona people were treated. These are people who had also been in Kenya for a long, long time and had been considered stateless. But around November last year, Mr. Speaker, they were granted citizenship and they are now smiling and they are really joyous. Mr. Speaker, I know that the people of Pemba will soon join the people of Shona in that celebration. Mr. Speaker, I know the committee currently is also dealing with the Nubian situation. These are also people who've been in this country for a long, long time and have also been denied identity or denied the feeling of being Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the Nubians are found along the areas of Kisumu, around Kibos area, around Kaloleni Estate in Kisumu. They are also found in Kibra in Nairobi, and these are people who've been in Kenya for a long, long time, but are denied the opportunity to have national identification as Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee and thank the chairman of that committee for having given direction that the committee needs to actually deal with this issue of Pemba people, because Kenya is a country that supports and protects human rights. Mr. Speaker, I support the report once again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, let's have, before we have Honorable Manji, I will request members who don't have masks. I can tell some members who have dropped their masks. Please. There are those two members speaking, and they are very close to each other, and they are not on mask. Honorable Gedi, Honorable Fatuma Gedi, please have your masks on. You are very close to that member, and no, you can still continue consulting, but on mask. Honorable Manji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me also join my colleagues in supporting this petition to recognize Pemba people as people of this country. Honorable Speaker, this group is not a very big group. They are about 2,000 if you go to the upper extreme. And when there were demonstrations, when they moved from, I think, Kilifi to Nairobi to see the president, together with Makonde and the others, since Shona and Makonde were recognized, I think it is good to recognize Pemba also as members of this community, because at the end of the day, they are more productive if they are recognized and put in the economy and they operate officially like any other Kenyan. But also, as a country, we should know that also we have a country to protect. We should come up with laws that will guide us from anybody coming to the country and claiming to be a Kenyan. I am not saying because of this one. At independence, I think that is where we should have put a cut line to say those people who are in the soil of this country at our independence should have gotten the ID and recognized as Kenyans. Because people of the world move from one area to another. For example, you might have a group of Kenyans moving to Uganda or to Tanzania. After some years, 20, 30 years, they will not start agitating for recognition at that particular time. There ought to be a cut line. If you want to go to another country, there are those laid down laws and regulation, like you can be recognized as a resident of that particular country, and you get a documentation that will enable you to be economically viable in that particular country. I know it is very humiliating for a member of a society to stay or to live without an ID card, because definitely you cannot operate. You cannot open a bank account. For example, in my constituency, Kajiado North, where we have members of other countries from Congo, from Rwanda, and other places, they mingle with the others, and they cannot even have SIM card to operate an M-Pesa account. So they rely with other members of the society. So it is good to recognize them, the Pemba people as Kenyans, but also to consider these other aliens, and they get the alien cards so that they can start operating officially if they're in the country. They are more, you can easily trace them more if they are recognized in the system instead of staying aside the way they normally do. So this group is not a very large group, and I think they occupy only 2 counties in Coast, Kware and Kilifi. So this is a number that will not change the dynamics of this country. Even put together, they cannot form a constituency such that, you know, time people fear about dynamics of politics when a certain group occupy a certain area. I think politically also they cannot change anything, but also If they change, then it is acceptable. But also, there is that issue of the economy of these people. Since we have a small island in Tanzania called Pemba, we try to associate these people as if they are Tanzanian. And that is what Mheshimiwa Baya was talking about. So it is better to recognize them today instead of agitating to recognize them 20 years to come, because by so doing, there will be more than maybe double. You see, Kenya is a powerhouse, and you expect many people trying to move to Kenya to get that document that we have really worked hard to make this country a viable country. So I support that petition.
Honorable Ongera Janet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this opportunity so that I may contribute to this report. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, let me congratulate the petitioner, Honorable Baya, and also for the committee for moving with speed and giving us a very deserving report to this House. Mr. Speaker, many of you may not know, but the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga is the real champion of the Pemba people. He has been fighting out there to ensure that the rights of the people of Pemba are actually recognized as citizens of Kenya. And I really thank the committee for actually having brought a report which really articulates the desires that he has always had. Mr. Speaker, there is nothing as bad as being stateless. There is nothing as bad as being not able to participate in the political process, economic process, and social process of your country where you have been born, yet, Mr. Speaker, you cannot be able to articulate that because you don't even have the tools that can enable you to be that citizen. It is really sad that these people who were born here in Kenya, in the coast, that for all these years, they have never been recognized as citizens. Mr. Speaker, I feel that the many communities that in this country, particularly the Nubias, I also in my county, Kisii County, I have a sizable number of Nubias, close, Mr. Speaker, to 500, who just live in a stateless world. They cannot participate politically. They cannot even be able to vote for me, Mr. Speaker, and yet I represent them. And these people have been born in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I feel very happy that the Pemba people, through this, I hope that Parliament will pass a speedy resolution so that we can ensure that they are actually recognized as the Shonas were recognized last year. I saw my sister Esther Passaris invited us to celebrate with the Shonas tomorrow, who were recognized during last year's Mashujaa Day. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, in terms of people not being able to participate in a political process, it is the saddest thing. I can imagine the Pemba, what they have gone through. They have been able to grow up. They are seeing that they want to elect this leader. They are not able to participate on that leader that they want, who they want to help them or run or be their member of parliament or their MCA, but they just hang on there. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, what saddens me is the question of bursaries. We have these Pemba people. Their children are not able to even get bursaries. I'm sure Mheshimiwa Baya will agree with me that he's not able to give them because the parents are not known. If you are stateless, me as a lawyer understand means you don't exist. You are nowhere in the world, yet you are already a citizen of that country. So I'll be very happy, Mr. Speaker, to see that the Pemba people can actually become citizens of Kenya, be able to participate in the political, economic, and social process of this country so that they can also enjoy the fruits that we have enjoyed in this country. With that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Thank you.
Honorable Moroto.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And just I'll be brief. I want to start by thanking this committee and the petitioner on behalf of the Pemba people. Yeah, this is the first time I'm saying very effective committee. I've been here for long. Sometimes when you put up a question or a petition, the committee can be invited to a certain place. Like one time, I've done it about 4 times. But when the committee goes to that place, they come with negative In fact, what is not even going to help those people on the ground. But this is the first time, and I want to congratulate this is the new chair and his team. Because sincerely, we need also to fear even God when because we are representing people here. We were sent to this place by people. And we need equal. Every Kenyan should enjoy Kenya. These people here, the people have suffered for a very long time. I'm a teacher by profession and a unionist. Sometimes when you go there, they don't even have a say. Even their children, they cannot even get the rights of education and other rights that they are supposed to go through. But now let us now, as a member, as a house, let us begin from here and ensure that these people get their rights. And then also, not only those people there, we have to get like now, the honorable from maybe the other Nyanza side said, there are other Kenyans who are suffering there. They were born here. Their grandparents have died here. They don't know any other place. This is where they belong. And we are still putting them aside. That's what people say. There's some groups are marginalized, like some of us, the pastoralists and so forth. I think now this is a group we need now to learn from this committee and do more thorough what we call research that can come out and help Kenyans. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I want just to end there and congratulate these people here.
Honorable Passaris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to speak to this report by the Committee on Administration and National Security. Mr. Speaker, I think Kenya is leading by example in the whole continent, and indeed the whole world. I mean, Africa was colonized, and with colonization came the mobility and movement of people. So you had people move from different parts of the continent, including even other continents, like we also had the Asians that were brought into this country to help build the railway. So we, as a country, I mean, starting off with the Nubian community and then going to the Makonde and the Shonas recently, and now this report on the Pemba. There's also the British overseas. Statelessness, we have a caucus on statelessness, is really against human rights. Because if you are stateless, that means you don't belong. It's like you have no abode. You cannot even travel out of the country. You have no ID, you have no passport. And the British recognized when they had many Asians that they had brought into this country, and now they were not Kenyan, and they basically gave them something called British overseas, which means they were not British citizens, but they got a passport. That means they could travel. And if they wanted to go to the UK, they'd have to get a visa, which was also proving to be very difficult. So Kenya, I mean, we have to commend our president for actually also, and the Ministry of Interior for also working at such speed. Tomorrow we will be celebrating and issuing citizenship to the majority of the Shona community that were still being processed. And I also have to commend the immigration, because it's a lot of work. But at the same time, while we do this, we hear some complaints from the Nubian community that the vetting process for them takes a very, very long time. So we also have to look into making sure that we don't take a very long time to vet them, because some of them are actually struggling. They cannot go for further education. Their children cannot basically join NHIF. They cannot, and now with Huduma number, if you're in a stateless position, you cannot even have the Huduma card. You cannot get a driving license. You cannot go to college. I mean, it is just so difficult. And, you know, right now we trade with M-Pesa. And when we were sitting down and talking to the Shona community, they were telling us how they have a business and they want to set up an M-Pesa. They get their neighbor to set it up, and then the neighbor takes all their money. If they had property and they wanted to buy property or make an investment, they use their neighbors, or they use their friends, or they even use their pastors. And unfortunately, some of them were actually suffered fraud from the people that they trusted. So Kenya as a country is leading by example. I have to say that thanks to Honorable Owen being ODM Damu, even though right now I think he's going through a state of slight confusion, he has actually emulated what Baba has actually got as a principle, that every citizen in every part of this country has to be able to feel that this country is theirs, they have equal opportunity, they will be able to not only be able to survive, but to thrive. We want to ensure that every Kenyan has that opportunity, that Kenyan dream. You know, as Baba is going around and he's telling everybody the Kenyan dream, which was lost along the way, thanks to bad governance, is a dream which Baba has held.
Order, Honorable Pasaris. What is it, Honorable Maje?
Honorable Speaker, is the member in order to campaign for a presidential candidate in the House? Although we know that Baba will be the president next, will be the first president, is she in order to campaign for her?
Well, Honorable Maje, I thought what you did is what you have just done is actually do what you are saying Honorable Pasaris is out of order of doing. But I didn't hear her campaign for anyone. So, Honorable Pasaris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful that he mentioned that Baba will be the fifth president of Kenya. And we pray and we sincerely hope that Kenyans will see the light. So when we talk about the Kenyan dream can only be had if people feel they belong to the country. And the only way that you can feel that you belong to a country is if the country recognizes you from birth to when you're an adult, to when you want to travel and tour the world, to when you want to invest, to when you want to trade. And being stateless does not allow you all those privileges. So the Kenyan dream will be denied to anyone that lives in this country that is stateless. It is not their fault. And if we're a country that really tries to push the agenda of human rights, we have to recognize that the colonialists did a lot of wrong by basically moving people from all over the continents and bringing them to Kenya and not actually having a remedy. But us as a country, we've got the remedy. We're actually ending statelessness in Kenya. And I pray that the Pemba people will be the next people to be recognized, and then we also sort out British overseas, and we also sort out the ones that are Nubians in other counties. So we actually commend the committee for the good work that they've done, and we pray that this country will one day say we have no stateless citizen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Odhiambo, a call. Oh, you spoke on this. I think you have registered interest to speak in the next business too early. Then in that case, let's have Honorable Sophia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. First and foremost, I want to thank the committee and the petitioner. When issue of human rights comes on board, I feel with my background and my experience as a person, I feel like it is passionate that I talk about that matter. Mr. Speaker, when you hear about stateless person, it pains me a lot, Mr. Speaker, because I've seen many people in Northeastern Province who are stateless, who do not have anywhere. They cannot do any transaction and any business. Mr. Speaker, they have had a lot of human rights violations because they are not able to be identified with anyone. They are not citizens. They do not have anything that can prove that they are part of this country. Mr. Speaker, there are a huge number of Kenyans when we had the fall of Somalia and the refugees came over. They got good reception, the refugees, and they had the best treatment that most of the Kenyan community did not have. So what happened? The people went to look for greener pastures in those camps. You will find a 30-year-old person in those refugee camps who is a Kenyan, who is stateless, who has nothing completely, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been following those issues, me and Mheshimiwa Honorable Mohamed Dahir and others. And we know the pain we have gone through, seeing thousands and thousands of Kenyans who are stateless in camps. And Mr. Speaker, it is very important that this issue of Pemba people have been brought to this House through a petition. We support the recommendation of the committee because I feel it is key and very important that people who are here under this country with our constitution that guarantees citizenship for any person within this country who was born here, who was brought up here, who have his parents here, then you say that you are not a Kenyan. Where does that person go to? That person will not go anywhere. And when my brother was contributing and said that we have Maasais in Tanzania and Maasais in Kenya, we have several communities on borderline who are on both sides. Not only Maasais, we have the Luyas, we have the Somalis, we have the Boraras, we have many, many communities who are across both sides. And they cannot, those who are not citizen and stateless cannot belong to the other country because this is their country. They belong here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we know there are many people who are conned because they cannot stand on their own. They cannot transact any business on their own. When they have their little money that they want to invest and they go and trust up even their own brothers and sisters, they are conned, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it is the right time we defend the human right of individuals who are stateless. And they are Kenyans, they are known, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is the right of every Kenyan to be honored and to be given the dignity and the trust, and so that they can have a belonging, they can have that confidence, they can have that trust in their country. Mr. Speaker, it is not only political process. When we hear, any person we see and any three that we see, we believe we want them to join us in the political activities. But there are more than political issues that affect the communities, that affect those individuals, Mr. Speaker. They are psychologically not settled, Mr. Speaker. They have lost their self-esteem, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they cannot even take their children. Their children cannot go to universities. Their children cannot be employed because even the parents have no citizenship. So where will the children go to? Those children are the children now who are disturbing this country, who are going into other illegal activities, Mr. Speaker, because they don't belong.
Okay, very well. Your space is gone. Honorable Duale, the Hill.
And thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I'll start by thanking Honorable Bayer for bringing up this petition. I also want to congratulate the Committee of Security for also a job well done. We have in this House passed the issue of the Shona community. And today we are talking about the Pemba people who are also stateless in this country. But I want to say that in Kenya, we have many people like that who are actually stateless. And when somebody is stateless, basically they have no legal protection. And they have no access to basic services like education, health, opportunity for business. They have no voting rights and all those kind of things. And sometimes those people really, it's like they regret about their existence. Let me just support my colleague from Ijara, Honorable Safia, on the issue she raised about refugees. Honorable Speaker, I do know that there's a petition on this matter, but because we are talking about stateless, it is also applicable in this case. We have had refugees for 30 years, over 30 years now, who are being hosted in Garissa County. We have 3 refugee camps. And these refugees, when they first came, the services available in the refugee camps was much better than the services available for the local communities. So many times, the local communities went and looked for health services, food, shelter, and even opportunities for resettlement. Now, in the year 2006, the government harmonized the NRB database, the National Registration Bureau database, and the refugee database. Consequently, what has happened, because they took the biometric data, fingerprints and so on, it was possible, it was those people who were captured as refugees, who were Kenyans and who went to look for whatever, food or whatever, when they became age of ID card, they were identified as refugees. And those people in the refugee camps right now, out of the 230,000 refugees today, we estimate as leaders from that area, up to 100,000 of them could actually be Kenyans who went to look for services. And these people now, because they went to look for food, they have been captured in the refugee database. They have virtually lost their citizenship. And these people cannot get ID cards. They cannot get employment. They cannot travel. They cannot vote. So this is the real, we have a category of people who became stateless because of circumstance and because the refugee camp, which was there, people went to look for whatever, food and shelter and education and whatever it was. So, Honorable Speaker, it is very important that even as today we resolve the issue of the Pemba community, and I think I want to say thank you, Honorable Bayer, for a job well done. We have to look these issues, because in this country, if, for example, you are an adult and you cannot be identified and you cannot get ID card, it means that you don't exist. What technically it means that those people, what will they do? They can become criminal gangs, they can join Al-Shabaab, they can do anything. In the Dadaab area, what has happened is that many Kenyans who are in this kind of situation cannot open an M-Pesa business, whatever, they cannot have an M-Pesa number. Consequently, they borrow ID cards of locals. Many times, they can become enslaved because the person who is hosting you can even decide to say that he doesn't know you. So this is really a true situation of statelessness which exists in this country because we have hosted refugees. Honorable Speaker, as we deliberate on this issue, I do hope that as we resolve this issue, the other issue of the Kenyans in the refugee database should be resolved.